Flying against other gliders in competitions is the best way to learn how to fly quickly and efficiently. By seeing in real time how decisions work out, we can go further, faster, sooner. Join me in the cockpit of 225 as we go through the most head-scratching moments from a challenging week at the 2025 Club Class Nationals. It's the start of the week and we're all getting back into the comp psychology. Who doesn't want a strong start? Fortunately, the weather is very weird. We've got overdevelopment and high cover, but the forecast is for good thermals underneath it all. I've never seen this before in the UK. Our task heads north, past Milton Keynes, then up to Northampton, then out to the east. Let's get going. With the weather so unpredictable, it doesn't make sense to hang around. From the start zone, we can see a clear line out, so we all leave pretty quickly, expecting at best a struggle, or at worst a distance day, where few, if any, complete the task, and points are awarded for those who make it the furthest. Nevertheless, the forecast seems to be holding true so far. There's climbs in unusual places, although I follow the sunny edge of this cloud on the way out. With a 5 knot average climb rate, this is a great thermal, and shows just how unstable the air mass is today. We're going to be taking as much height as we possibly can from this. Unfortunately, from the end of this street, there is no sun on the ground all the way into the turn point at Northampton, which is 11 kilometres away. What do we do now? Let's look around. I've got the turn point ahead, some sun directly below that could cook up some thermals, a little bit of sun and cumulus on the east side of Northampton, and good landable fields around the town. So as cautiously as I can possibly be, I set off at best glide for the turn point. As I turn the turn point, I see some other gliders pushing across the town, but as I'm lower than them, I don't feel confident that I'll clear the other side with adequate height to pick a good field. I turn the turn point at around 2,000 feet. On balance, decide that backtracking to the sun will give me a better chance of finding a thermal and a good field. However, I know that I'll get there only at about 1,000 feet, which won't give me much time to try and soar away. Now I really need a thermal. Now how about some clues? There's nothing obvious. but this town could be a start. Maybe the edge of the woods? Or maybe some soaring birds. The wind turbines tell me how the wind is flowing on the ground, which is really useful for figuring out thermal triggers and picking out landing fields. They're starting to look a lot bigger now though, which is a bit disconcerting. There are a few weak bubbles here, but they aren't being actively driven by the sun, and hence don't allow me to really climb. I've picked this stubble field as I descend through about 700 feet. One more turn. Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure other people would have got away from this, so... Unfortunately, that's it. This isn't working. We're too low, and it's time to land. Before the glider's even rolled to a stop, the irritation with me messing up the day is playing on my head, so I have to remind myself to focus up a bit. Stupid. Oh well. First up, text the crew. Thanks, Sam. Then on to glide and seek. Or the misery of seeing everyone else making it further around the task and eventually complete. So what was the biggest mistake? Well, if we compare my trace with 364 on WeGlide, who crossed the gap at the same time as me, he made the difficult decision to backtrack to ensure he had as much height as possible to cross the gap. He was able to comfortably reach the far side of Northampton and connect to more heating than me. Nevertheless, on this unusual day, this paid off and he ended up winning the day on speed. There's always another day, like this one, where boldness and survival flying played equal part. The forecast showed patchy conditions with strong, high cloud bases, mixed with large, unsoarable gaps of spread out and maybe showers. In my planning, I knew that, firstly, I didn't want to start too late, in case conditions deteriorated, and B, in tricky conditions, it wasn't ideal to fly alone, so being with a group of gliders would be ideal. Initially, the flight was relatively straightforward, with a bit too much cloud, but useful and reliable climbs to get us in and out of Buckingham. Going east past Bedford presented a huge area of spread out, with no sun for at least 20 kilometres. Needing to glide nearly to the horizon is a scary feeling. This extended to the north and south to such an extent that avoiding it was impossible. Together with an LS-1F, we decided to brave the gap, with my moving map predicting getting to the sun at around 1500 feet. At best glide, my Mini Nimbus and the LS1 perform very similarly, so we both cross the gap with about the same height in the end. As we reach the sun, the climbs are very weak, but I don't yet have the height and confidence to push on. I can see decent triggers beyond this town, the quarry, and delicately push on towards the turn point. At this point, I can see that my climb rate is not as good as the gliders higher up in the stack, which is very frustrating. At this point, the LS1F has significantly gained distance on me. I now need a strategy to catch up. The next leg also looks difficult, going back into wind with a deviation needed away from a large area with minimal sun and no obvious cumulus. However, despite how difficult the day has been, a combination of sun on the ground and cumulus has always marked a good climb. I can see a line of really nice cloud ahead. Could this be as good as it looked? And maybe, just maybe, could it be perfectly situated at the next turn point? Let's take the gamble. Wait for it. There we go. Rolling into 6 knots. The LS1 is now beneath me, having deviated to weaker climbs on the way here. Having been scrapping around at well under 3,000 feet for the last hour at least, being able to get to over 5,500 feet in this thermal seems like a ridiculous luxury. The day's not over yet though. I put the hammer down to get some distance from the LS1 under this strong line of energy. Approaching the next area of spread out around Northampton, the clouds deceptively lack decent climbs, preventing me from climbing up to glide through it. I end up low under this large cloud with a few others, including the LS1. Too late, but it's gear change time. I gently push into the sunnier skies, taking weak climbs to keep me off the deck. Resist pushing all the way to the end of these clouds, as getting low there would leave me without many options. After all this, I need to make sure I get on final glide. Nevertheless, I get there in the end, and 5 knots takes me to 500 feet under glide. With a direct tailwind and decent enough looking clouds, I run straight home, catching up a couple of gliders who waited longer to set off to the finish. All told, I came 6th for the day, behind the LS1, and while plenty of decisions could have been better, I wasn't far off the top points for the day. It's now the latter half of the competition, and we unexpectedly woke up to a decent racing forecast. Just downwind in the south, showers and thunderstorms are kicking off, but Dunstable is just on the edge, allowing a reasonably long soaring day without major problems. For the first time, I can choose when to set off, although the length of task doesn't leave a huge window to do so. Therefore, I set my start criteria as latest start, 3 o'clock, or once most of the pack has already started, whichever comes first. In a higher handicap glider, my advantage is a greater ability to reel in lower handicap gliders to likely finish at similar times. I start at 14:43 after a majority of competitors with nice lines of energy heading north to the first turn point. With good cumulus marking the route, I don't need to rely on others for information, and it's hard to get into the best part of the thermal in a busy gaggle. However, it's not as straightforward as it looks, and I end up stuck in a gaggle with 766 and YouTube's 4X-ray. On a day like this, there are no significant decisions to be made for large parts of the flight. We all follow the best looking clouds, stopping to circle only in the stronger lift, and any one of us in the gaggle that pushes out to find something better is easily caught. As we turn around the far turn point, conditions become less straightforward. Now, how can we make sense of this picture, and where do we get our next climb? We're facing directly into wind. Clouds nearby, scruffy, low density, without a flat base. In the distance, they look a bit better. If we now look at the ground, we can see why. The buildings in the distance are a hot trigger, with the lakes and damp ground around them producing little lift. Hence, the clouds are forming from the town and drifting over the wetland and fizzling out. Therefore, we need to fly directly to the trigger and should not expect any lift on the way. One more decision, and it's high stakes. Left or right? I can see 766 aiming left. If I'm right, the best thermal should be on the right, next to the town, so I go straight for that. As I get closer, I spot one more thing. Do you notice it? There's another cloud forming upwind of my target. Now, I'm sure I'll find a halfway decent climb, and the commitment to a slightly deeper glide will be worthwhile. And that's that. A solid 5-knot climb carrying me all the way to cloud base. Underneath me, competition stacks up, including 766, who only found a couple of knots under the other cloud. I now have a sizable lead over these other gliders that I'll hold on to all the way to the finish and onto the day podium. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe for more overanalyzed gliding. I have a lot to edit in the coming months.